Hello, everybody. The darkness retreats, the void surrenders, and the realm is bathed in light. I awaken, resplendent and unyielding. Gather, my chosen, for the age of greatness begins anew. As promised, I have returned, and all faithful who are here get to bear witness my splendor. Today, we're going to be hanging out with Rec and discussing a world building project that we've been working on for the better part of a decade. It could be longer, it could be shorter. Time is a construct, and I'm above it all. At any rate, let's go ahead and jump over there. So, today we're going to be doing a Lorcast on a world building project that we've been working on for a while. We have a lovely guest here who's going to act as not quite a moderator, but
mediator.
Mediator. That's a much more appropriate.
A key log, yeah.
Yep. And she's going to be prompting questions, asking for clarification. Although, if anybody in the chat has any questions or has anything that they'd like to know more about, I definitely invite you to chirp up and voice your interest, because that'd be super cool.
We just constantly got the Starship Troopers "Would you like to know more" button popping up on the bottom.
Just always.
And it goes nowhere. We just want you to break your screen pressing it. Should we
do the
All right, so yeah. Charm keeps trying to say stuff, and then I derail the choo-choo.
So I think a good place to start, especially for people like me who know nothing other than the music, is, and I know this will be a little hard because you guys have so much lore built up, but a basic summary. And is this a story? Is it lore? Is it a universe? Is it all three?
It's kind of more of a setting, I think, would be a better description for it. Z?
What, the album?
No. The canon itself is more of a setting and a history. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a series of stories and lore in a fictional universe it's a world building project. So it's a setting, it's a bunch of individual stories, it's events, cultures, and art that are created to both service and represent the universe. So you'll find different expressions of it, like the short story that I had written is in the perspective of a person in this universe at a certain point in time, whereas these albums represent the tales that people tell to each other in universe of their own history. So it's not always as cut and dry as this represents a one-to-one retelling of the factual events, but more of a this is this part of the story, this part of the lore, as seen through this particular perspective.
Okay. Then from there, explain the world.
Explain it right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Rex
so
kind of
here's
started
the
to
Earth.
explain what type of fantasy genre it falls under, the magic and that kind of things, or lack
like
thereof of magic.
Grim, dark, mana punk fantasy. Probably be the best buckets to slice it into.
Yeah, it's a sort of mid-level fantasy. Mid as in like magic, mid-magic level fantasy. Like, it's not so hard so as to imply that we have solid rules on how everything works, but there are aspects of the magic that do have rules that we follow in order to explore them, where other aspects are left much more soft for both narrative interest and to give us room to expand in the future. But definitely fantasy. Mana punk is definitely an aspect of what we explore there. But you'll also find things like a lot of you'll find a lot of themes wrapped into here because we try to make the world culturally diverse. Um,
Yeah.
and that is seen as you explore the different like regions and the cultures that populate.
And like not just culturally diverse, but also age it over time. That's a thing that I personally have a lot of fun doing.
For sure. We try to, because the lore itself spans over the course of
Yeah, how many
thousands of years. It spans over a course of a whole long ass time.
Yeah.
We try to make sure that when we're looking into the past and developing things for the past, we leave a through line that we can connect to the future, or how things get from point A to point B, or whenever we're projecting possibilities for the future, we want to make sure that we're laying down things that we can then explore or extrapolate to those other things in the future.
Okay.
Although we've definitely also done it the other way around, where we've put something in the future and then de-aged it to see what it would have looked like in the past.
It's true.
To start going more into details, because I know you guys have a lot of lore, but this is all sounding very vague, and it's
Oh
not
yeah,
fully
100%.
painting a picture. Give an example of that, where you guys have started something in the future and then de-aged it into something like to span the centuries of time.
I've got a few examples in mind, Rec, unless you have something that you want to voice.
I mean, it'd be the avatars themselves would be the one thing that jumps off the page at me, because that's also kind of where the canon started for us.
Mm-hmm.
The avatars?
They're these heroic figures from the history of the world that played a very important part in the establishing of the known canon. But as a result of the impact of their actions, they've become a lot more deific as time progressed. So where they were just really important people in the past, they've become pseudo deities in the future. Kind of like how, and just to use our American perspective here, we take the founding fathers and we have idealized versions of what they may have been like. This is kind of extrapolated times 1,000.
Okay. Okay.
My own example would be I have a conlang, or a constructed language, that I'm using for one of the regions, Arcanus. And in the writing that I've created for it, I've also gone and tried to come up with etymological roots.
I really appreciate that, Yogi. Thank you.
Shout out to... Oh, hey. Nice. And roots for what the glyphs originated at. So I have a sort of map of how the symbols that represent the different letters in the alphabet changed over time, in order to be able to give them some kind of context. Or if I ever wanted to do something written several thousand years ago, I have an idea of what those letters would look like, or where the language would be in that place and time.
Okay. That's actually really cool. I love that you pulled written language into it, because that's something a lot of people miss, and is a really big part of what made a lot of the classic fantasy writers so big, is their written language, and that it's an actual usable written language.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It's gotten to the point where it's scaled enough that whenever I want a name for something, it's usually the first place that I look. my small glossary or dictionary of words that I already have existing, and see if I can put together a name for something using the rules that I've already created. And if there's an absence that can be filled, then I fill it. And over the course of time, I now have nouns, verbs, some adjectives, and a general grammatical structure that I can use.
Yeah, it's very much a construction of what you need when you need it, as I understand
Hey,
it.
Anubis.
Yeah, so he said
characters
historic
like
characters
Achilles,
like, yeah. And
and both great.
kind of, except
Yes.
taking taken in a different direction as far as how we recall those individuals, because on our own trajectory for this like socioeconomic and intellectual evolution of like the societies of Earth, we have increased our knowledge and progressed bit by bit. There have been setbacks, sure, but right now we're kind of at a high point for that. So we look back on those figures as like mythical in stature, yes, but still men, and try to identify the difference between the mythos and the man. Whereas in the Arx Legacy, that growth, that progression didn't happen that way. They rather than learning to understand these mythological figures as men, they deify them more and more, to a point where like at least one of them is being given credit for most of creation, because people don't understand the difference between a lot of things. So it kind of went in the other direction of real life. Did I misrepresent anything there, Z?
No. It's certainly much more pronounced in the areas in which they are celebrated. For example, Arx Arcanus kind of holds.
I knew where he was going with the Bofa, by the way. I was choosing to gloss over that and take an actual question out of it. Go fuck yourself.
So Arx Arcanus is kind of the religious hub of the world, in that they kind of they're a lot like the Vatican in that sense.
Chaos is saying that the music is drowning me out on your stream, by the way.
Good, it's your own album, I told you.
Oh, you son of a bitch! Turn me down.
There, that should be much better. Where was I? So because Arx Arcanus is the religious hub for a large part of the world, their avatar, or the person that they worship and venerate, is a much more impactful figure of the three initial avatars, where the other two are still worshipped and venerated in their own right. The avatar Pyrian is much more pronounced in their religion and has a much more central figure.
Yeah, he's there. Almost when you messianic.
Yeah, he's both Messiah and God in several ways, because where the rest of the rest of the Imperium sees the religion as something to be practiced a lot more casually, there's aspects of the religious canon that speak of him in ways that are a lot more divine. For example, in the religious canon, he literally sang magic into existence. That's not literally correct, but there's enough of what happened in history to be like, I can see how they've drawn that conclusion. And then in places like Artifices, where the avatar Raquius is a lot more prominent, they see him as sort of a master architect that brought the world together, while the other two avatars take a little bit more of a back seat, in the form of, like, they were important, they were instrumental, but all of this exists because of the groundwork and infrastructure that was created as a direct result of our avatar. So their importance doesn't necessarily wax and wane, but becomes a lot more potent, depending on where in the world you're exploring.
Yeah, it's cultural figureheads.
Yeah, that makes sense. So am I correct in saying that the first album is someone from the future telling the stories of those deity-like
So
people?
that was an exploration of what the how the oral history might be passed down, and I kind of like, in talking with Z a bit, kind of really liked the idea of power metal being how the oral history is passed, and
It's
so
pretty sick.
so that's kind of where that came from. And a lot of artistic liberty was taken describing the events in Genesis, as well as describing the cradle itself. And that's intentional error and unreliable narrator from the point of view of like the future oracle or the bard or whoever happens to be retelling that oral history.
Pause. The cradle.
It is the world that gave birth to humanity in our canon. And it was completely annihilated in a foreshadowing of the inevitable heat death of this universe in the form of the darkness, or the dark.
Okay.
Also, Arafel? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the proper name.
That's
the clinical name.
Clinical name.
Well, because the main individuals in the lore who came up with words to describe these things approached it all kind of from a scientific point of view. So there is clinical names for things that they defined, but there's then there is the colloquial terms or the folklore terms or popularized descriptions and things like that, which are largely cultural.
Okay. Would it be correct in saying that those from the future in this second world that they go to,
Which is called Atrium, by the way.
okay, Atrium, would view the dark, because I don't remember the actual name that you just gave me, as more of a folklore, as in something that, like, how Christians view the rapture.
Yes
or
and
the
no.
coming.
First off, just
Okay.
a slight correction. It's Atrium, not Atrium.
Atrium.
My apologies. I had like just
Don't worry,
taken
you're not the first
just
person to
taken a
make that
drink.
mistake.
Didn't you? Wait,
Huh?
who else made that mistake?
Many people who have attempted to say atrium have accidentally said atrium. It just looks very similar.
I remember that being a confusing thing when we were first making a server of that namesake a long time ago. What was I in the middle saying? Oh yeah, yes. The question about whether people view the dark as folklore or not. Yes and no. So it's so culturally impactful because that's a deep genetic scar for all of humanity, or what seeds what remains of humanity on Atrium, because the cradle as a world is completely lost in that event. So they lose their place and have to forge a new one on completely alien lands. And so that has a cultural imprint that echoes throughout every age in kind of its own way. And eventually we'll get to a point where they know the dark is evil, but they misattribute to it what that means. There are like dark-filled caverns and stuff, and like old mines and things of that sort beneath the ground, and they just kind of start culturally referring to that as the dark because bad things happen in it, and they just understand that bad things happen because of the dark. They've lost what the dark actually was because it hasn't been a problem for so long, and so they start attributing that same horror to other things, kind of like we do the boogeyman.
Okay.
The dark is the boogeyman.
Right, right. And that actually kind of makes sense because the Christian devil is actually what the boogeyman is based off of. Um,
I did not
but
know that.
no one, yeah, see, no one really knows that. Uh, that's why it's always like, oh, if you're bad, the boogeyman will come and get you. It's actually, if you're bad, the devil will come and take you to hell. Like that's what they're referring to, but it's
You
been
see that,
so
Z?
lost in our culture
Yep.
Cool.
uh that it's just
Oh
the
no.
boogeyman. Um, so that kind of makes sense with the dark becoming just anything bad or evil
Yeah.
or scary.
Anything you want to add to that, Z?
Um.
Or correct?
Yeah,
I run off with things in stream of consciousness on a lot of stuff where Z is far more annotated with things. And so he acts as the de facto lore keeper just because he has a written history that we keep living, where I have
It's true.
everything stuck in the gray meat wrinkles, and I remember things in my favor more often than they were in my favor.
You also remember your version of the things that you thought of before we discussed them.
Oh yeah. I also just come up with things and then canonize it to myself without talking about it with him, and then I'll have it, in an album and be like, "Oh, you're cool with this, right?"
And then we gotta have real long conversations about how to make things work.
Yeah, we just like autism vomit at each other in front of someone and at someone else's birthday. Oh my god.
I'd say that your description of how people view the dark is pretty accurate. By the time that people start looking at it as a cultural memory rather than a memory that they know themselves, then it definitely loses a lot of its bite. They understand that it's the reason why the cradle doesn't exist anymore. They understand that it's the reason why they're not there anymore, but they don't really understand what it means in relation to them or in relation to the world that they live in or how
it's also
or will affect them.
Depending on level of education. There are those that don't actually know that the cradle existed because it's wrapped up in a creation mythos where Pyrion, the avatar of day, created everything and sang magic into existence, and Pyrion was from the cradle. So it's viewed as kind of a heaven or a paradise before. So there are those that don't actually realize the cradle was a different world, but they bear the genetic scar still of something lost. So it is a paradise, but it is a paradise lost. Milton's not going to sue me for that one, right?
No. He's got enough.
He's got enough. That's got to be fair use. That's got to be.
He got a whole version of the church just for himself.
So is it like humans, like how did they get to this new world? Is it another planet that was
yes. Yeah, it's another
them?
Not near them.
Did they magically
So okay, I could go into this, but I'm gonna instead let Z take this one first, man. It's his baby, and then I'll flesh out anything around that.
Well, I mean, you did do a lot of the fleshing out in the album itself. Yeah, he's better. Okay, cool. Yeah. So to summarize, there's the world that is known only as the Cradle. Whether or not it had its own name is entirely lost to history. But this is where humanity is from. And in this world, humanity has kind of... I wouldn't describe it as an ecumenopolis where it's completely covered in city, but it is a utopia of technology and technological advancement. Whenever you think of like the meme, this is where we would be if I'd not dropped my ice cream, and then it shows like flying cars and a big bright big bright background with people walking through huge parks and everything looks clean. That's the general vibe of the place.
Okay.
And at some point in its history, the dark arrives, and the dark is its own. It's effectively a cataclysm. It's a large entity of mass consumption and destruction. And when it visits the cradle, it fighting against it becomes untenable. So what humanity does in the last days of its losing war against the dark is they put together every scrap of experimental science and magic that they've managed to accumulate up until this point, and they create a device that theoretically allows them to be able to teleport. It requires an astronomical amount of power. It is wildly unfeasible. It is unreliable and difficult to navigate, but it is theoretically possible. So using this one final gambit, they manage to find a place far out in the universe that seems like it is hospitable to human life, because geoforming isn't exactly an option when you're bearing down the mouth of this calamity that's a day or two away from destroying everything.
Right.
And they create this last-ditch effort that consumes their sun, their world, everything as fuel to get this tiny little pocket of humanity moved over to this potential new place where they might be able to find some kind of survival. And so they execute this plan. A council of very few people come together and make this decision for all of humanity. And this is where you see the avatars first come in, is they're part of this group of people who come together in secret, and they're like, hey, so we have this. It kind of sacrifices everything else, but it gives us a chance to live where we're definitely all going to die in like 3 days or in 2 days or in 1 day, however long is left before the dark finishes consuming the solar system that they're in. So they unilaterally decide that the city and everyone in there, they'll try to gather as many people as they can.
What's up, Salty?
Huh?
I'm just saying.
Oh, hey,
Salty.
They'll try to gather everyone that they can and save what they are able to save. And so while the device is being prepared, people are being drawn in from everywhere. Information is being written down as best they can. And then finally, when they pull the trigger, it teleports that chunk of that world away to Atrum. And as a result, consumes everything around there. It consumes your sun, it consumes the rest of the world. But none of that really matters because that was about to be lost to this threat. So, yep, exactly, Chaos. Bend the veil, slip through space.
However, that song is in reference to a much later event, but using the same basic premise and the same basic technology.
Yeah, they extrapolate that the technology used to move the Ark, which is the city that had been moved from the cradle to Atrum.
In an event called
later.
The Faithless Exodus.
Yes,
I'm dropping that because
called...
it's fucking dope.
It is dope. That technology is later revisited for slip technology. which is a form of teleportation through moving through higher dimensional spaces. So in order to, once they've managed to bridge that gap, there's an offset that causes the field in which the city lands to be partially underground. So the end result is the whole thing just kind of explodes outwards, and the city lies inside of a giant crater. And it is in this crater that humanity slowly tries to find a way to keep itself alive. And that's where the beginning of the album comes in, with humanity just doing its absolute best. So the album starts with the final days on the cradle.
Yeah.
You travel through the faithless exodus, and then you see the beginning days of humanity as they try to establish themselves on Atrum in this completely alien and wild world where their technology no longer works, because magic fundamentally works differently here than it did on the cradle. So they're starting at a technological disadvantage, with really the only thing going for them is, the indomitable human spirit. They got moxie. They got chutzpah.
Okay, I gotta pause you real quick to expand something out in regards to a correction with the and a fleshing out of like the politics of the cradle, and the nature of how the avatars came to power initially. So the avatars, Pyrion, Rockwas, and Tivinia. Am I pronouncing Pyrion correctly? Is it Pyrion or Pyrion? Okay, cool.
It's either.
Yeah,
I think it's Pyrion.
Okay. They represented a not small faction of academia on the cradle, and were elected kind of democratically as the masters of their schools of thought to handle the crisis for the Ark, which was large in part a kind of a large school of progressive academia. Like it was the bulk of the cradle functioned to pursue higher knowledge and work their own kind of form of magic called Arx itself, which is what the city was named after.
Okay.
So Pyrion, Tivinia, and Rockwas were initially elected to lead through that crisis. And that election was done fully knowing the direction that they were going to take it, because the Arc engine was a largely debated and loudly discussed topic. So it was kind of a decision everybody made. Or
everyone
at least,
on the Ark.
Yeah, everybody who survives.
Yeah.
So culturally, they bear the weight of that decision, even though it was the avatars that turned the keys that lit the engine. Everybody voted for them. They all bear the weight of that choice to save themselves, but also to forge a legacy for humanity.
Okay.
Chaos has a question.
Based on location, is it deity based or is it tied to the planet?
So the question is, for anybody listening without watching, what makes magic behave differently based on location? Is it deity based or is it tied to the planet? You want to answer that?
So I have the answer that existed when they were in separate spheres. Now that and this is not something we need to go into any further than if you know what a sphere is in sci-fi or fantasy, that's what I'm talking about. but it no longer is applicable to our own canon. And so now I don't actually know how they're different, but I know their sources are different. I know what each of the different sources are, but I don't remember how we logicked out how they're able to be different within the confines of the same universe.
So I don't know if we've decided that every planet has this quality to it, or every celestial body.
No, that's right. I remember now. Yeah. So
Okay, cool.
the cradles. Okay. So answer is, it's based off the planet because what is referred to as breath or Atrum's breath on Atrum, which is ambient magic, radiates out from its core. It is a part of the chemical processes of the planet's core in this universe. And this has a number of interesting knock-on effects later on that we can get into later, but are touched on in multiple tracks in the albums. But on the cradle had an inert core. So it did not have this, it did not do the same radiation of ambient breath or magic. So what arc energy they were able to get came from their star. Anything you want to expand on or correct there?
No, that's pretty much it. Volume down on the music is smooch more.
God damn. Just switch to one of your lo-fi beats, dude. I was mostly giving you shit. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was this big of an issue.
It is kind of as low as I can make it here.
That's wild. My shit's so low. Like it's over here limboing.
It could benefit from tweaking, but
nobody benefits from tweaking. Trust me, I've seen drugs take out people.
Okay, cool.
That being said, you should smoke.
How's that, Chaos? No, that's more or less it. There's a quality to our universe where celestial bodies radiate a form of raw magic, and this is not something that was present on the cradle. So a lot of the technology was made to exploit the little amounts that they had in whatever ways that they could. And when they moved to Atrum, because of the incredible saturation of this magic coming from the core of the planet, everything just flat out doesn't work.
Yeah.
To use an analogy that Rec here had devised, it's as if we were saturated, just steeped in electricity. Everything grounds out immediately. And our technology has to be developed very differently, even if it operates on a lot of the same principles, just to account for the fact that we're constantly surrounded by this force. So
and
it takes a really... What?
I was go ahead, finish your thought. I'm putting a brush down right there.
So it takes a lot more technological discovery to be able to even approach what they had before, where some aspects of it might flat out never be able to be reproduced. There are aspects of it and things that carry over that they can use, at least in principle.
So I was just gonna finish your sandwich right there and say the same thing, that it's not initially one for one, but a lot of the principles follow through. So yeah, You touched on it exactly. Brush removed.
Okay, and a lot of that technological advancement has to come from the ground up, using alternative sources to try to interact with this universal force in a way that is regulatable, which is where we start to see Bile being introduced in later parts of the album. This or later albums. I don't think. Oh yeah, you do reference it in the first Legacy album.
What starts to be introduced?
Bile,
Bile.
which
So
is a like a natural biological ichor that gets saturated with Atrum's breath, the ambient magic, because there's not a living thing on Atrum that isn't part of this natural cycle of magic, and they all interact with it through various organs that create this ichor-like substance.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
lots of stuff has pockets of this bile, and it's the first time that humanity gets to see the way the world interacts with this force in a way that is a little bit more understandable to them, because they'll see it glow red and then dim back down to blue. They'll see it more prominently in creatures or living organisms that are much more magically potent or magically saturated.
Chaos. Chaos asks, is Atrum unique in that sense, or are there other worlds with that a magical aura? It's less of an aura and more like it's being blasted out. Kind of like it radiates outwards. It's not held. It just kind of radiates outwards. And any celestial body with an active core in this universe has the same effect. And in fact, the only other world that we have explored in canon as of yet, which is called Barzil, has the same ambient magic. They don't all, much like gravity, it's different for each world, but kind of operates on the same basic principles.
Yeah, it's more or less the way it works on Atrum, just because that is the correct way that it is generally expressed. But there are minor differences depending on the makeup of the celestial body. Yeah, it's like a star of magic.
Okay. Since you guys said you have thousands of years of lore and stuff, do humans start to evolve to fit better and be able to work with that magic?
Go ahead, take it away.
Also, side note, if I'm
Tavidia's
ever
a fucking
touching on
tree.
something that you guys aren't ready to talk about, you're welcome to be like,
Oh, we'll
tell you.
We'll say it. We'll say it. Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you firmly stating that, though. So, first off, Tavinia's a fucking tree, and that's hilarious. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Okay, you're right. You're right. Tavinia may have been swallowed by a tree.
Oh my God! Continue. I will answer the question for you.
Humans never evolve, or at least up to the point that we are at. Like the most recent canon event, Voidfall. Humans have not yet. What? That's the most recent canonized event.
You're right.
Yeah. Humans has as of yet not evolved in any way to interact with the breath. There are mutations that have popped up throughout history through various means that have done some things similar, but large in part, humanity is a stain where the breath is concerned. It's not something that it interacts or plays well with. Whatever animating spark humanity has doesn't jive with the nature of breath, because they come from they were birthed from a world where that was foreign.
Bear, when you ask a type of corruption, are you referring to the humans or the magic? For those who are just listening and not looking at chat, Yogi Bear asked, so kind of like a type of corruption.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little hard to discern what exactly.
Oh, the bile.
The bio. Oh,
Oh no,
no. It's kind of like how our organs process and metabolize things, and there's a waste or a second effect waste. It's the biological waste from processing breath like that. That's a natural process for them. It just creates this buildup in every organism over the course of its life.
it's a lot like a gallbladder.
Yeah.
Or the stones that some animals will eat.
Yeah.
Although this is a lot more natural, they don't necessarily supplement it nutritionally, but it's just a thing that it is the answer to. So how come this thing can breathe fire or fly or whatever? And this is the interface that they biologically use to be able to tap into that power. So they have an organ saturated with a fluid that can interact with it.
It's literally called a bile bladder, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the way that the animals and the natural fauna of Atrum more like interconnected, like an entire web connected throughout the world? Or is it just they have access, like they just naturally have access to this magic?
So their connection is yes and yes. Fauna is included, but their connection is almost mycelic in nature. It's not a conscious connection by any means. It's almost like there's a small guiding hand to maintaining the balance of ecologies and the wax and wane of resources.
Okay.
So populations are almost intentionally controlled by nature, and almost intentionally. There is no consciousness. There is no joint like deity or anything like that. But everything kind of for the slightly, and I'm saying slightly only to not piss off Z, for the slightly sentient native species on Atrum, because there are some who can even speak and interact with humans, and you know what, damn it, actually they're people too. Fuck you, Z. But for them, it feels like being connected to everything around them, not like an extrasensory, but kind of just like a belonging. And it would also explain like sort of like that weird subconscious paranoia that you get sometimes when somebody's watching you. It's a hard point for us to lean on narratively for that. So like they would feel that through this connection, that sense of danger.
Okay.
And then other creatures exploit that connection to hunt, and the swarm is one of those.
The swarm?
Take it away, Z.
The swarm is an invasive species on Atrum. They're big bug monsters. I have a reference image that I can pull up here. So anybody interested in seeing what these cool bug monsters are, you can jump over to my channel.
Are you gonna make me do work?
I mean, you don't have to see it, but
No,
I've been
You're
watching you
better
play
off
with a
seeing.
sword and shield, dude, or two swords. My bad.
oh yeah, I'm animating my Raiden thing.
Fuck yeah.
So let me see if I can add a new image or change the.
First off, amazing picture.
No.
You do great work.
It's a pretty good one. See, you exist inside of this dragon. You're a big boy.
Thank you.
Not you.
Oh, look, man.
This is what they look like.
But
They are a
That is
highly
huge.
adaptive species that
Oh, okay.
exists.
But
But that their driving motivation is basically just nom nom nom. They eat things.
So the what is it? God, I'm gonna probably get this wrong. The predator alien thing? That's what it looks like.
It does look a lot like that, and that's where I drew a lot of the inspiration from when creating it.
How big are they? Are they like
varying sizes
larger
depending
than
on
human?
class of what it is.
Oh great, that's very descriptive.
I mean, so they operate as large hives. So there's varying classes of swarm with operating within a hive based off of need and the niche that it fills in the hive's like hierarchy
So
and
this
cycle.
This one hunched over, as an average of its species, would be like 5 feet to the tallest point there, maybe, and
Okay.
like
Hello,
8 or 9 feet
beautiful.
long with its tail extended.
Thank you for that follow,
Like these
Yogi.
things are.
So
These-
super fucking scary. Got it.
Oh yeah, no,
Yogi,
hella,
yeah, thank you for the
hella.
follow. Yeah, they are vicious, and part of their adaptability is whenever they're faced with a threat, they relay the information of that threat to their queen, and all subsequent generations are adapted to resist against it. So it's incredibly important when you're fighting these things to wipe out every last one of them, because any survivor will pass on that genetic history or that genetic memory onto its surviving species.
Now, as I understand it, that's there are diminishing returns on that, because if a specific trait is not beneficial for a fair amount of time, it's no longer beneficial to include.
Right.
Yeah. So something that worked in ages past may work again, but then you'll have to wait a long fucking time to play the same trick, essentially.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the swarming.
Okay. What is something in all of the lore for both of you, and I'm guessing is going to be vastly different things, that you are most excited about?
Go ahead, Kev.
No, you go first. You go first. I'm thinking. That's a complicated question. I like the question.
Parts of the lore that I'm most excited about. Probably all the parts that I'm fleshing out myself. If I wasn't interested in them, I wouldn't be fleshing them out. For example, the wiki that we have, or the soft wiki that I keep, was largely as an answer for me being able to flesh out aspects of the lore that are largely irrespective of the rest of the world, like until they become relative. So I'll cook for a while and I'll come back to Rec and I'll be like, hey, so fun fact, here's how culture works in Arcanus. Because of the fact that they are effectively the breadbasket of the world that feeds the rest of the empire, they have a lot of flourish and ritual to their cooking, as a result of being both plentiful with food and also heavily steeped in religious dogma. So that is expressed through their food in the form of a lot of weird ritual like you would see in Japanese tea ceremonies. or in a lot of French cooking, where you take just the tiniest bit of an ingredient out in order to use it for a much more complex dish. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about anything that allows me to be able to visit the culture of Arx Arcanus, because I've had a lot of fun playing in it. But
Hmm.
the whole empire as a whole and how they interact with each other is also really interesting. Like whenever we get to work out political intrigue between the different major major factions, um, is pretty fun too. Because
Okay.
this world's kind of an awful place. It's kind of an awful place in where things are consistently bad, either because they did it to themselves or because the world sucks.
Yeah. There's no
Fair enough.
point in which this world has any chill.
Mm-hmm.
This absolutely explains, Rack, why, God, I think it was a month ago when I was at your house, and we made a joke about living in a world of your own creation, and you were like, "Oh God, no, I don't want to do that. My world sucks."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, it it's not great being an average motherfucker in our world. You're definitely dying to something trying to eat you at some point.
Yep.
Um, there there are some ages actually in which that's not the case.
Yeah, that's true. But those are pockets of good in an otherwise uh, bleak and terrible place.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rack, it's your turn.
Yeah. What
Uh oh.
aspects of the world are you interested in exploring? Branching into
So it's a little
40K
self-serve.
faction.
It's a little self-serving, but I feel like I am afforded the ability to get excited over pockets of this story as I get to tell it through the albums. Um, and so I got I got really hype on the genesis of our canon through the album Genesis, and like thinking of what the cradle was like, and which led to further fleshing out of the political structure and how those events actually went down, because prior to that we had kind of only hand waved it as it's all myth anyway, which is fantastic, but it was still fun living in that and trying to figure out what that was like and collaborating with you on those events. And yeah, so it's not any one thing. It's as I because I intend the Legacy project, for as far as my albums go, to just continue walking through the ages.
Hmm.
And so I see that as a chance to live through all of it and flesh it out that much more. And so I'm excited to just walk through our history.
Okay. Uh, because I didn't know there was a short story written to this. At some point, Z, I would love if it's published or public in some way. I'd
Did you
love to be
ever
able to
make it
read that.
public, actually?
I don't think so. I think there's
Oh,
a pass of review that I want to. I think there's a grammatical pass that I want to do to it, but I'll get you an advanced version of that, so you don't have to wait for me to sit on my hands.
Branching into some 40K level politics. My apologies. I just saw that, and yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, they kind of define grimdark a bit, especially in the modern era, and this definitely has a lot of grimdark to it.
Yep.
yeah. Now I'm gonna pull up my talking points that I wrote out earlier.
Um, so to also to go back to a question that you asked a little bit ago about humanity evolving to utilize breath in any way. And I said that there were some mutations that popped up through various means. And I kept, and I made the joke about Tavinia being a tree. So Tavinia, the, what did we land on? Is she still called the Avatar of Life? I think so, right? Because Matthias is the Avatar of Death. Yeah, we just have them as two sides of that coin, kind of like day and night. I mean, we can visit that real quick and define it. That we're here, as long as you're comfortable. Proper title for Tavinia and Matthias. We're still going with Avatar of Death for Matthias, yeah?
Yeah. I'm okay with her sticking with life.
Okay.
I think the other ones had gotten a little more loosey-goosey to where they are now. Like at Pirion and Rockwest weren't always the avatars of day and night necessarily. There was a period where I think Rockwest was the avatar of mind, and Pirion was the avatar of spirit. Like that?
Yeah, there was various iterations. But that was when we also had them taking on a mantle of Avatar while they were alive / present. Whereas now it's a post-mortem or post-exodus title that is kind of assigned in the deifying of these figures. Not something they took on in life, and in fact would have stayed away from any sort of godhead while they were present. That was probably a lot of words, soup, that I just did. I suddenly realized.
Soup.
It's good soup.
So, you guys...
Akin to sainthood, exactly, Chaos.
Yeah, you guys keep referring to them as avatars. And I know in part of that, or at least I can figure out, and part of that is due to the fact that they were once alive. Though you specifically, Breck, avoided saying that they died, because you keep saying, well, they were present, or, what word did you use? But,
died / exodus. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you for that follow. Like LeBron. I guess I like LeBron. LeBron ain't bad. I mean, never did anything to me. So, thumbs up. Yeah, so we haven't actually decided where... We haven't canonized yet where we land on what happened to the avatars. Their exodus from society was definitely intentional. We don't know if they've died or if they are gone. We haven't yet lined up on that, and we like leaving that in the gray in case we want to use them later. Within their lifetime, it's recorded that through various means, they each came across a form of biological immortality, not meaning that they can't die, but that they wouldn't of age, which were extensions of life extension programs that existed on the Cradle, just taken to taken in a much more arcane direction. And in fact, in later ages, Tavinia, the Avatar of Life, it's culturally assumed that she's still alive, that she turned into a tree in Arx Arboris. That's not, and it's culturally known or assumed that way to Arx Arboris specifically. But it's not like she's talking. That
she became a sort of world tree.
Yeah, it's not like she's talking or anything like that.
Okay.
The only avatar still alive in Common Era, which is so as of Voidfall, is Matthias, but not present.
Okay.
Right.
Just kind of
Um,
in Jacarudis, the Necropolis, chilling, doing weird edgy shit.
Bear, uh, Bear asked if these avatars are similar to the embodiment of true words, or just entities that obtain power, which begs the question of do they actually have power, or is it just the idea of this is what they control? Like, the idea of Thor controlling the skies and thunder,
Right.
where
So these are
So
individuals who actually wrote the books on the sciences of magic in this world, and penned the instruments and tools, or forged the instruments and tools that later generations even used to interact with these forces. So it's kind of one of those, like, knowledge is power sort of things.
okay.
They definitely do eventually become like singly powerful, each one of them in their own way. But each of those also happens in different ways. You want to expand on that, Z?
yeah, that's pretty fair. A lot of the association that they've gained over the course of their own individual legacies uh, is what caused them to be aligned with these avatar type flavors, I guess, if you will. Um, for example, Tavinia had in her life, in the life that she had been active and present for and seen in, had done a lot with healing and curing and making sure that everybody was fed. A lot of her philosophy was on growing deep roots to be able to withstand storms. Um, Whereas a lot of the things that Pyrion is known for, especially as a result of an entire religion basically being made around him, is seen as sort of a sun god, where originally he was a champion for the people, and he brought a new dawn for humanity, or he helped bring a new dawn for humanity. Later, do those words become a lot more
Literal.
are seen a lot more literally,
Yeah.
where not only is he bringing the new dawn, he is the dawn. He is the light that shows you the way. So as this religion begins to build around him, so too does that mythos. Um, so these avatar mantles start off as just general associations that are both poetic and somewhat accurate, and get blown entirely out of proportion. But like you said, they are incredibly powerful, and this definitely leads to how impactful they are culturally. But it's not something that they undertook for themselves. It is a label that the people gave for them because that's how they saw them. They saw them as avatars have these aspects because as they reached out to try to find meaning in an otherwise violent and meaningless world, they found comfort in being able to attribute these labels, these romantic and poetic labels, to these figures that have risen over the course of time and had such a first-hand account or first-hand influence in directing the future and survival of humanity.
Well, hello, beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you for that follow. I can't believe you just put that word front and center. Motherfucker's name is Mr. Peen.
Pioneers of their times, yes, Yogi.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, you, Rack, mentioned earlier that, like, early on, that they all live with the genetic proof, um, of their transition to, the New World. Like, you had
Oh,
maybe not genetic proof,
the
uh,
like genetic
genetic
scar.
scar.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Is that, like, what does that look like? Is that a
It's not
cultural thing
not so
or like
literal. Not so literal. It's more of okay. Take the take the popularized Genesis, the Garden of Christendom,
Mhm.
and imagine if we all remembered, in a sense, the taking of that fruit and the banishment from the garden. Like we had a sense of that loss that's just passed on in all of our oral history, all of our song, things like this, things like that. There's always a touch of loss and of mourning. So it's something that's just ever present culturally. They're just aware of that fall from grace, as it were. They're aware of what they've lost, of what came first, even if they don't know what to call it. Even if to them it was heaven itself, they lost heaven.
okay.
Is that too vague?
Um, it's not too vague. I'm gonna sit on that information and talk with you about it later.
Z,
'Cause I
was that right?
I
Is there anything that needs to be corrected?
you lost me in the forest somewhere. I don't even remember what the question was.
It was about.
a
Hold on,
genetic
I've got
scar
Popeye going off in my ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that you lean into a little bit more. There isn't a literal genetic scar. There is a
No,
cultural scar.
It's cultural. It's something that is just kind of
It's a lot like if it's a lot like if British people cared more about the
don't be
entirety of the
taking
British
shots.
Museum. Huh?
Don't take shots. Go alienate a whole
I'm
ass
saying,
demographic.
like right now, the general attitude is, yeah, everything in the British Museum isn't ours. It's from all over the place. But if they had a lot more, I mean, that's a lot less personally guiltful of like, oh, that's ours now. We reclaimed that, where otherwise would have been lost to time, as opposed to a personal guilt that might be felt by a group of people. So it's a lot that kind of sting. It might be somewhat relatable to Germans living nowadays in the way that they see
Mhm.
the Nazi Party, where it's like an unfortunate part of our history, and we have cultural conflicts about how we express our pride in our country because of the way that some people have expressed it. So there's always people will always be proud of where they come from. The German people will always have pride in being German, but there will forever be that. But also, there will always be a little asterisk there going, but also I do or do not support the actions of my country under these circumstances. So in this case, the way that this scene culturally is, I'm we came from somewhere. This atrium here is my home. This is where I was born. This is where I was raised. But I will always feel lost for the fact that I'll never be able to know what this perfect utopia that we came from is like. That is entirely unobtainable. So it is a cultural loss that is felt in some distant way by everybody.
Okay. That makes sense. Uh, um, you mentioned earlier that the cradle was a utopia, correct?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit. How does magic interact with technology and with humans in the original world? And how the change to the new world affects that. Other than just their technology no longer works with the magic. Like
So it
to
was
go from
it was
a
utopian because
utopia
they
to
they were beyond resource scarcity with their level of technology, which was utilizing it was essentially solar power, a very very filtered and modified form of breath that radiates from stars because that's
Mhm.
all that was present for them. Um, so you wanna take this further, Z?
Yeah, this is. I mean, the part of the reason why you're struggling here is this is one of those aspects where we intentionally left it a little bit vague, because the details of what it was like there are largely irrelevant and somewhat um, flexible for when we write later parts of the story. Um, so what we know is is that, like you said, it's beyond scarcity. Magic interacts a lot more like a resource that you have to harvest and collect and maintain carefully lest you lose it. Um, because of how difficult it is to obtain. Eh, But that how it was utilized there is a lot more um, soft magic-y because
Mhm.
we like to allow that to become to be a lot more flexible for narrative reasons. For
Mhm.
example, the faithless Exodus, uh, the device that was created in order to slip them from the cradle to Atrium,
Love your use of the
is
word intentionally, by the way.
huh?
To slip them. Love your use of the
Yes.
intentional word. I just
Yep.
wanted to point that out.
That was that was that gives a glimpse into like the fringes of their science, which is they didn't really have teleportation, but they had devices which could create spell engines, which would allow you to move stuff interdimensionally to other places. So you get a general idea that they've sort of mastered their limited access to this magical uh, force, but have also been limited because of how little
How
they have
little they.
access to.
Yeah.
Hmm. So
Um,
it, yeah, go ahead.
so my question was more, anytime that you have a utopia that then its entire basis for how it's run disappears, uh,
So it actually didn't.
there's so
It was translated. I can take this. The political thing, like structure and intrigue, is one that I've played into a lot, except for where Arcanist is concerned.
Well,
That's
I
all Z.
just want to make sure I understand your question correctly.
Okay,
Go ahead and
so
finish the thought.
my
I'm
apologies.
more talking about like they were beyond scarcity and they end up in this new world. Are they now having to figure out how to create food again? And is it different food because they're in a new world? And how the people react to this because they've been in a utopia their entire life. How do you then have to go, oh fuck, I don't have food. I don't know how to make food. I don't know how this works. What do we do now? And it's not any food that I understand because we're in a new world. Did they bring seeds along? Did they start to terraform with stuff from the old world? Like, was that part of the plan? Um, how did that affect things culturally? Um, like your entire life, it would be as if someone from the US who lives in a like mid-class family is then put into a third world country and been and told live.
Yeah. So in response to, did they bring any seeds or any way to feed themselves from the cradle? Absolutely. There were both flora and fauna that made the traversal on the ark with them, and each of those gets changed over time as they farm them, as they rear them from that landscape, and that, like, they're still represented eons later in familiar animal shapes and things like that. However, what makes them fall backwards from that lack of resource scarcity is that they were at a point where they were what's the word I'm looking for? Almost. So they had techno reliance. So imagine if we were compositing material out of raw particles.
Yeah.
And that was I'm not saying that they have a one for one for this technology, and I'm not canonizing that by any means. Z, we can address that later. This is just an analogy. But so if we were compositing materials out of directly out of like particles, and that was we would pull raw, we would mine raw, and then use raw to composite anything else we needed. And that was what we relied on for all of our resources, outside of those reared from the land itself. Then, such as livestock and like fruits and veg. And then the technology that we relied on to be able to composite that material was suddenly rendered inert because the environment in which it operated was no longer present. We now have no way to create the resources we rely on for everything else. And we have to learn how to composite materials from the ground up again in a foreign world. So operating with maybe the same basic principles as far as metallurgy goes, but actually fundamentally different, because this world is fundamentally different. It has an active core. It's been radiating breath into these materials. It's changed them in unique ways. So we are having to relearn basic metallurgic principles in a world that seems to have an additional force of nature that modifies most of our mechanisms and artificery. So we have scientific principles. We still know math, and we can create. We know language to describe scientific advancement and technological advancement, but we have no foundation for any of those actual trees for technological advancement anymore. We have to start back over. A computer chip just won't work in this environment. So computers fundamentally can never work. How do we arrive at the same answers, essentially? Yeah. And that just has echo effects through everything else. So the last of those individuals that they had elected to positions of leadership, one, it was because of their decisions that all of humanity that exists still exists. So what they did succeeded in the eyes of the survivors. So they're heroes. And they're still willing to continue to lead. So they just continue to lead for extended lifetimes. However, those individuals also insist on elected officials to act as additional seats on a council that makes governing decisions, because they didn't want to move too far away from the idealized form of government that the Cradle had. In their lifetime, they didn't. They kept trying to maintain to the things that gave birth to that utopian society, because it was in that, although a militarized form of that they saw humanity being able to potentially outlive the coming dark, because they see the dark as inevitable. I meandered a lot there. Did I answer the question?
Sort of. So just to confirm, essentially humanity went back in civilization by quite a few ages. As
Yeah.
in, like, say we're in a steel age now, they went back to like bronze or something like that. Because of just losing the ability for so much technology. Did that knowledge make it through the thousands of years, like as humans developed a life on this new world? Is that knowledge still present, or is it lost knowledge of, yeah, we used to have these amazing, beautiful, cool things, we no longer know how to do that
So
because it became
no.
irrelevant.
Yes and no. Again, depending on your cultural background and education level, you either know of wondrous machines of the heaven, the cradle that came before, or you know of a technological basis that is not applicable to this world. You know that there were different scientific, like, governing forces for a world that came before, the cradle that came before. So an academic minded person would know that information, where many people, because it doesn't matter for their life, would think of it in a more mythological, like from a more mythological point of view.
Okay, so kind of the mindset of
The
like in
information
other
is present,
fantasy
but not
worlds.
everybody has it. Yeah.
Yeah, in other dystopian fantasy worlds, instead of, because most of them refer to humans being the problem, instead of looking back on all of the technological advances that we made and were subsequently lost as a bad thing, it would still be revered and seen as a good thing of, like, we used to have these amazing technological advances, but we no longer live with that because it's just not possible anymore. So that, like, dystopian mindset of the past being this awe-inspiring, very advanced world, that we don't have anymore.
Exactly, and that's also echoed age by age, because the age of the avatars, when they were living in present, and the progressive sciences that they pushed forward, that was, technologically speaking, more advanced by far than the ages that follow afterwards. So that's something that just kind of repeats itself through history on Atrum, is that every age that comes next is worse.
Yeah.
What
It's
causes that? Is it just because the
Degradation of
is
society
no
for
one-
various reasons, such as greed, lust for power, people being people, and
Or
then
both.
also external forces such as swarm invasions, the dark coming back in the Voidfall crisis.
The avatars leaving in the second age, or
Yeah,
rather,
that
the
that's
avatars
a huge change.
disappearing. It also takes with them that the huge wealth of accumulated knowledge
Yeah.
and figurative and literal power.
Okay.
Because their intention is to design structures that will outlast them, having looked directly into the face of cosmic mortality. And so
That's well put. Cosmic mortality.
yeah,
I like
and so
that.
by the time that they leave, it's up to the devices that they've set to run and to operate, and the people don't run them. very well for a lot of different reasons, foreseen and unforeseen.
Okay, now I can't just stop asking the question of, did they not have like proteges or apprentices that they tried to teach all of their knowledge to?
Oh no,
To
they did, and bits and pieces of it remain and echo throughout the ages. But also eventually, that that mantle of information becomes a mantle of power, and power is
ah,
inevitably abused.
yeah, okay.
One example of that is in attempting to maintain a both a record of the past and a living library of the the magic that was being developed. Um, the Pyrion, he would take on several um, proteges, people who would just follow him around, learn from him, take down notes for him, in an attempt to try to absorb as much as they could. And part of the system that he left behind was for an elected group of people to be able to help maintain and arbitrate the use of the information that was gathered. You travel several hundred, maybe a couple thousand years down the line, and that turns into a full blown religion where not only do people who no longer have a first hand connection to this person start misinterpreting the words that are written down, willfully or not, but eventually people who are just hungry for power start using these systems to redesign them in a more uh, in a more centralized capacity in order to be able to weaponize them, in order to be able to keep themselves in power. So what started off as a a group of magistrates, I think, who helped watch over this massive library of information, eventually becomes a group of archbishops, with a sort of a sort of hegemon at the top that now claims to literally have the keys to the kingdom, because not only are they keepers of all information, are they keepers of how magic works, but they also have what look like divine beings justifying their efforts, because part of the tools that are left behind are large and powerful, and a lot of it is beyond conventional human comprehension. So when these tools start being flexed in order to demonstrate your divine authority, then a lot of people start falling in line where it's like, well, yeah, he's got fucking angels on his side. Who the hell am I to argue? um, so you start off with Pyrion trying to make sure that the information just stays alive, and you end up with eventually it being not only taken out of hand, but also people willfully trying to use it for power. And then you later on down the line have a an Empyrean encompassing religion that places this avatar at the top and uses a lot of the words and uh, tools that were left behind to justify keeping themselves in power or exercising that power in ways that they see fit.
Okay. Yeah, that's like how the Catholic Church for a really long time didn't um very few people were taught Latin unless
Mm-hmm.
they were like highly educated. But they still did sermons and stuff in Latin, so the only people who actually knew what the Bible said were those who were highly educated or part of the church. Um,
Right.
and
I mean,
it
they
was,
outright changed the Latin language as well. It's a different
Yeah.
language that's spoken by the church, ecclesiarchal Latin, yes? Sarah? Or, see,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
bad, yeah.
And it was a great way to keep people in line because you had to just trust that what they were saying was true and what was written.
Right.
Okay. So going back to the avatars, because you kind of started to mention, uh, like, the two for life and death. One, how many of them are there? Like, who were these important figures, um, who moved, them to this new world, and what are they generally associated with now in their godlike status?
Um, so there's three of them actually, and that's Rockwus, Pyrion, and Tavinia.
Okay.
The first elected advisor of Arx Angelus when it's formed, so the individual who was the steward of Arx Angelus, elected to lead it, his name was Matthias, and he fucked the job up royally. Let the whole place burn down. Let zombies get up and start eating people, and then he just burned the dead everywhere, which is a big cultural no-no. Burning the human form is sacrilege. The human form is seen as sacred, and the legacy must be preserved. It's part of that whole cultural scar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he fucked up royally, and they kicked him the fuck out. But they had problems with dead getting back up from time to time, and it wasn't great. So they started to move their dead to a necropolis in the north that the Matthias, the banished dude, was made to steward over, kind of as a punishment. And later on, much later on, culturally, he is seen as the avatar of death, even though he was not one of them. And it's not a title of veneration. It is kind of a spit. Because
it's like, this dude was awesome and he brought the day. This dude was awesome and he brought the night. This dude sucked and killed everyone.
Yeah.
That's his legacy.
Yeah. So he's remembered as an avatar, the avatar of death, because for all that the other three did, and Tavinia being the avatar of life, he still managed to suck.
Just to confirm, because a lot of people tend to, with life and death, put some type of romanticized relationship there. Tavinia and Matthias never had any type of connection.
No, they actually did.
Not romantic, but they did have a relation to each other.
Entirely political. Well, not entirely political, because Tavinia was also Matthias's mentor. But there was a large political affiliation, which is what led to Matthias being elected to the role of the first advisor, and to begin with. And something that he struggled to step out of the shadow of was being essentially the Nepo hire by Tavinia for the seat, because Tavinia was so popular.
Okay.
At the time. That changes. Fucking tree.
So then... God, I'm so bad with names. Tavinia, the original three.
Tavinia, Rockwus, and Pyrion.
Yeah. They were originally the head of their school of knowledge, correct?
Multiple schools of
cradle.
thought and sciences, yeah.
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 Elected to be the ones in charge of this project to bring humans to the new world.
Yeah,
And then from there,
it was like
they
humanity's Hail
continued,
Mary and like a
yeah.
Manhattan Project all in one.
From there, they continued in leadership roles to try to help humans adjust to the new world as much as possible. And because they were uh, the heads of their Jesus, brain is not working today. Uh,
Of their
they were
schools
the
of
heads
thought
of
and
their school of
sciences.
thought. They were also the most knowledgeable going into this new world for their
Um,
specific area of like expertise.
in their lifetimes, like it. So realistically, it was them and teams of people and understudies and assistants and other
Mm-hmm.
people that they relied on. But they were the figureheads of those sciences and schools of thought. And there was also a lot of collaboration, specifically between Arcanus and Artifice. So Rockwest and his team, and Pyrion and his team, for a number of very impactful projects that have ramifications for ages to come. So yeah, realistically, it was groups of people, but it all gets attributed just to them.
Okay.
It's Oppenheimer. And I don't mean the movie. I actually haven't seen it, but referring to how that individual is associated
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of things that a team of people working with him as a figurehead actually accomplished.
Okay. I'm glad you explained that because before the movie, I actually had no clue about Oppenheimer. So, and
Gotcha.
I still haven't seen the movie.
Nor have I.
Yeah, I'm running out of things to ask. We covered a lot.
We have. We have.
Without going into just straight up
Watch on.
stories. So,
Z, was there anything that needs to be corrected from what I spewed on the avatars and all that jazz?
Not really. Not really. A lot of the story happens after the avatars.
Yeah.
For example, the avatars leave partway through the second
Second
age.
age.
And,
And-
the timeline that we span goes to 5 ages. So we have a lot of stuff that happens after they leave, and a lot of it is a domino effect of what the world looks like after they've lost these massive resources. So at the end of the second empire, or at the end of the second age, during what's known as the first empire, that's when things really start getting tested. When a great pestilence comes in, because one thing that wasn't mentioned is when humanity first lands on Atrum.
Oh yeah,
The
Leviathan.
world is populated with these apex predators called Leviathan, that they eventually culturally called Leviathans. And these apex predators are enormous bioforms that that effectively stem a lot of the unmitigated growth of the world. So they eat forests. They cull herds. There isn't a ton of them, but they are incredibly impactful. The world is basically inhabited by Godzillas. So,
Godzilla.
as the direct result of that, as soon as humanity lands and starts trying to get its footing, they attract the attention of the local megafauna, these leviathans, who now see that there is a new interesting thing to try to eat. The humans in cultivating the land and in killing all of the swarm the swarms that have been attacking them from the moment that they landed effectively start attracting the hunger of these megafauna who see vast amounts of resources being accumulated in a small place. And
Right.
it's as a result of having absolutely nothing to be able to defend themselves against these titanic creatures that they abandon the Ark in the southern plains of the southern plains of the continent and move north, where they eventually end up settling in a cold and mountainous area that is devoid of a lot of resources, but mostly and most importantly devoid of megafauna. There are no leviathans where they are because the resources are so low. There isn't a lot of food. There isn't a lot of vegetation. But there's just enough to be able to eke out a sort of survival. So the first stronghold that they ever create is Arx Angeles, which is established at the peak of Mount Angeles. And that is where humanity kind of finds its home for a really long time and ends up becoming the most important part of their post-cradle cultural history. This is not just like where we are. This is our safe haven. This is our home. This is the only place that we can know any kind of safety is inside of these walls. I like to think that the icon that they use for the Arx Imperium, which is the A with a dot inside of it, represents both the mountain and humanity's little structure at its peak, kind of nestled there, showing that is the heart of humanity, while also representing the A that the Arx Imperium brandishes. So it becomes a huge cultural staple for them, and it's not until later on down the line where Purian moves back south to try to reclaim any amount of resources from the remains of the Ark that they discover that they can kind of retrofit a lot of what was left behind.
At least for short-term use.
Yeah, very short-term use.
It fries it, and this is where we lose a lot of technology forever.
Yeah, because we kind of burn them out in order to be able to go on this crusade to clear out the megafauna. So the end result is most of the leviathans are driven to extinction, but we effectively permanently lose all of that ancient technology in an effort to make that happen.
Okay.
And in the albums, I refer to the Leviathan as dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're just leaving me with more questions.
Good. Ask me.
Okay, fire away. Also, let us know if you're coming up on a stop for time.
Oh,
I'm good, but I don't know about y'all's timeline because we're 2 hours in.
yeah, you're both good. I'm gonna
Dying.
fall asleep as soon as this is done.
Sure.
My brain's not really working much anymore.
Do we have anybody in chat who would like to step in and play mediator and can pick up the torch, so to speak? Because I want to afford you the opportunity to get your much deserved rest, and the rest. And if we do continue after this, the rest of it will be available on YouTube, and I'll shoot you the link to it so that you can follow
Never
that.
sleep.
That's my mantra. I do not preach what I practice. Z.
Never ever sleep. Sleeping is for nerds.
We have quiet fucking chat.
Yeah.
Picks. You think you can pick that up?
Hey, yeah, I got a question. What the fuck is going on?
Oh my god. Vibe shift. Vibe shift. One moment.
Mr.
First
Peen, I'm going to
off,
assume that was directed towards me. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, I got a few questions because I came in here fucking blind. I had no idea
that
what
was
being
directed at you, you fucking eyeball.
I came in in the chat early on accident, and Rick was like, "Oh, this is what's going on, by the way," and yeah, just listen for a bit. I'm confused. What is this a lore to? What is this? Is it just like lore that you guys are crafting? What's going on?
It's an IP that we utilize for most of our projects. Few of which have actually landed in the public eye until recently with the albums.
Right.
Although, hopefully here soon, Mr. Floating Eyeball Man releases his short story because it's fantastic and it should see the light of day. God damn it!
You're right. I want to make sure it's as good as it can be.
I got you. I also liked the movie with Jack Nicholson, as good as it gets.
Great.
First off, before we go any further, Charm, thank you so much for leading this charge and mediating and kicking us off like that. You did a fantastic job. Definitely helped guide the stream or torrent rather of consciousness that I am, and the absolute encyclopedia that Z is.
Yeah, so Z, you may not know this, but I have been asking since the first album came out. I was like, I need the story. I need the answers. I need to know.
And I was like, I can't really do this without Z. It's hard to...
Hello there, Watermelony.
Lily, what's up?
Yeah, so that's what this is born of is me asking Rec to please give me answers, and he's like, this is...
What does
This
any
is
of
a
this
lot.
mean?
Please give me answers. No.
Kicked for inactivity.
That's actually what he did.
That's fair.
Because we were texting, and he was like, I'm not doing this over text. And so I
Yeah,
just looked
yeah,
at the note,
fucking
and I'm
hell
like,
to the no, am I doing that over text? Oh my god. We're 2
I'm
hours
like,
in and we ain't scratched it.
Yeah. But thank you guys for indulging in my questions and getting to live in y'all's world a little bit. I absolutely love it, and I want more answers. I will be watching this on YouTube when I wake up to catch up on everything that I miss.
I'll have to get it up as soon as possible, though. I.e., oh god damn it! I walked right into that one, dude, with arms wide open. Thank you for that.
But anyways, so how long has this been crafted?
About a decade.
Part of a decade.
So no, bye guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Goodbye and good night.
Charm.
We'll have fun
I'll be
taking over my
messaging you
spot.
here I'll be messaging you here in a second with the.
Okay.
I ain't even been alive for a decade.
You guys all have fun. Goodbye. Good night.
Why?
Night.
Good night.
I died.
Okay, so what else? What started the crafting itself? So my questions are going to be mostly about the whole thought of the crafting of the lore itself.
Okay. I'll fuck with that.
So what started this whole?
So how the sausage got made?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you've always had had a thing for just crafting lore in general.
yeah, I'm an absolute and total motherfucking nerd. You're right.
All the way back to fucking middle school.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of lore for you, Corey. because you are privy to that deep shit. You know that language that I wrote?
Oh, here we go. Yes.
Yeah, that is in this canon.
Wasn't it like a language that you made for the Zaclinians?
No, for the Nocturne.
Was like I
Oh,
mean,
it
like
started
originally,
as Zaclinian. You're right.
There we go. Yeah. See,
Oh,
I know the
shit.
deep lore, man. I was there when it was written.
Fuck me. All right. Thank you, Lily, by the way, for the Popeye. Yeah. So
Mr. Peen, it is for anything that we want to creatively explore. We can dip our pens into this universe in order to be able to explore.
our
It's
development
functionally-
company Arx Tech has a shelved games project that takes place within this canon.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of the albums that I've released under the Legacy project name are telling stories pertaining to the canon for this universe or a window into it. Be that with artistic license. So it's not like one for one and it's not literal. But yeah, that's the premise and the setting for it. As well as a short story that Zeno has worked on and I'm hoping is public facing before we die.
I'm not
Is it like a?
I'm not
short
Martin.
story, like,
I'll
from the
publish
perspective
this
of an
bitch.
average like character. Or is it like a lore heavy character? That's the short story's perspective of.
It's not a lore heavy character. It's just a person who lived in this world and what it's like for them to live in this world.
Although the person
Okay.
does become lore important. But like
Yeah,
that's kind of the thing with this much history to play in is people are important in windows and in pockets.
Right.
It depends on the scope you look at it. So there's only a few figures that are important throughout the entire scope. But there's many people who are important for smaller windows of that time.
Right. I heard it like touched on a little bit in the beginning. The overall aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
Like what exactly are you going for with the aesthetic? Is it like a
Grimdark mana punk, leaning towards like ecclesiarchal high fantasy for Arcanist. It kind of changes regionally. We have a lot of cultural
Right.
distinctions.
Yeah.
But it all kind of has that same grimdark mana punk fantasy feel to it. That's
Right.
all of its root.
do you have any like pseudo elves in this type of a universe?
No.
No.
But we do have
The closest we have the Dryad is the closest thing we have.
All right, let's dive into that a bit. Let's talk about races. What kind of races do you guys got? I heard you talking about the Leviathans.
So those are
And
big ass beasts. Those are kaiju style beasts. They
Yeah.
they ain't a sentient species by any stretch
Then I
of
heard
the
about the
imagination.
Zerg, the swarm.
Oh,
Sorry.
the
Yep,
Zerg.
the Zerg.
You sneezed. You sneezed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Allegedly.
legally distinct Zerg.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like
Yeah.
to think that the reason they work is much less nonsensical than the Zerg.
Well, I mean, the
That's
Zerg
true.
themselves can be just seen as like a legally distinct Tyranids, or
Yes.
the Xenos.
Yeah.
No, you're right. They're
Yeah.
legally distinct Tyranids, and the Tyranids are legally distinct Xenomorphs.
There we
It's
go.
all
Yeah.
stolen all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I don't feel even a little bad.
okay.
I'll check out.
What
the
other
YouTube.
kinds of races
Hell yeah,
do you have
Mr. Payne.
inhabiting this?
I appreciate
This universe you got here.
So
Um,
that depends on your point of view, because this motherfucker's gonna say there's just humans.
Well, okay, so you got humans like that went down different evolutionary paths or something.
No,
no,
there's
but
just
there are
that-
demi-humans.
humans are from a completely different world. They're not from this world.
Okay.
Humans are aliens. So you missed the beginning part.
Yeah, man, I was locked into the game. You know.
That's fair. That's fair. Humans humans are from a world called the Cradle, and they ran away from an extinction level event, destroying their world, and came to Atra.
Right. I've heard this part.
Yeah. So
The
they're
Cradle
not.
is basically like Garden of Eden type deal.
That's how people remember it, kind of culturally. Yeah.
Yeah, rose tinted gums.
Yeah. But
Glasses, rather. World of Warcraft.
No, there's a
but yeah, so like humans are humans and they're not from here, so they didn't go down any evolutionary path. They're still just kind of people. But there are native species that were heavily impacted on Atrum by humanity's arrival.
It's just like these fucking monkeys showing up.
Yeah. But they're super advanced space wizard monkeys.
Okay, so you said that there are species there that were impacted by it, but Xeno says that there's only humans. What's the...
Well, there are demi-humans. You're asking what kind of species there are, and I think it's a much more general term. So as far as the species that we have named, we have, like you said, we have the Leviathans. We have a lot of Earth life that was brought over from the cradle.
Right.
We have humanity. We have demi-humans, which are humans that have changed over the course of time, not necessarily through natural evolution, but just through circumstance. We have, as far as the stuff that we're currently working with, mostly just that. There's the native life to Atrum, but that's varied and contains all sorts of nonsense.
When Rick earlier mentioned they're people too,
Oh,
who the fuck was he talking about?
fucking goblins, dude.
Goblins, all right.
Fucking goblins. I love goblins. Goblins are amazing.
And you know, why would you not consider them sentient?
They're not sentient.
By what metric?
Because they're not. They are. Would you consider AI sentient,
No,
or
son of a-
the manifestation of a bunch of decisions being made through logic? In this case, they are the result of
Is that not what we are?
many experience. Well, kind of, but these are okay.
Okay.
So, getting down to brass tacks, one aspect of Atrum's life
Yes.
is a group of creatures called that humans colloquially call goblins. This is everything. This is how you would think of orcs in Lord of the Ring, where it's like, well, it's the little fucks that are running around, and it's the big motherfuckers with the hands on their face.
The Orca,
like,
yes.
yeah, exactly. But like the Urukai, the Uruk, and the goblins all kind of fall under the same umbrella. And in this case, we have things like we have things like more traditional goblins and things that are more troll-like, which all fall under the umbrella of
goblins.
So-
They're just called. It's all of that family of creature is referred to as goblins. It's kind of an umbrella.
Yeah. So they're all in some capacity, sentient as animals are, but their sapience is
They have
a lot
two.
more
Okay, hold on.
fungible.
They have social hierarchies.
I'm not
They have-
here to
they
argue
have- they
what
have-
makes sapience sapience.
Wolves have social hierarchies too. Would you consider them sentient, Rick?
They have cultures. They have histories passed on in some regards. Be that either documented externally
Obviously.
or orally shared.
Hey, Chaos, you're not allowed to say that.
Goblinoids. God damn it.
Oh, fun fact: goblin
Kinda.
is a slur.
Goblin is
Goblin
a
is
slur.
a slur.
In our
Yes.
canon, it makes fun of the way they speak.
It sounds like gobble gobble.
It sounds like gobble gobble to the Arcanians, so
I mean,
that's why they call them goblins.
Can it be considered a slur if they don't really understand what the fuck a slur is?
no,
No,
they can't
no.
because they're animals. They're
God
stupid.
damn it! They're fucking people. See, Artifice actually sees them as like a sapient race and utilizes them in their like tinker workshops and stuff like that, because goblins actually work really well in groups. They have a specifically
Not
desert,
just
desert
really,
goblins.
really well, almost exclusively in groups.
Yeah. So they were devoured constantly by megafauna as they evolved, and so the way that they perpetuated their species was through almost instantaneous learning. So you're like born with the knowledge of those that came before you, and they group share that information as well. Oh shit. This is why this needed a moderator and not an interviewer. Keep it from flagging. Oh my god. Hold on, I've got Popeye going off in my ear.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Cool. What was I saying?
Goblins are stupid and they're dumb and they're bad.
No.
Rek is going to cope his way into anything.
No. Okay, so no. And they group think really fucking well because they all just kind of know what the others are thinking at any given point in time. They share information like that. That's how they share. That's how they survived, was to share information that quickly.
I'll be a good boy. You smoke.
And artifice.
And they didn't. I'm guessing they didn't have a chance to like advance like technologically or like in their brain. Like their whole fucking function was just survival. That's the whole like
Right.
the whole share think thing was just based on
Their-
survival.
Their survival mechanism is to be able to telepathically share their experiences and memories when they return to their
Had they been like
Warring.
grew on a different environment, they would have been able to advance.
Yeah.
Right, but that's just the thing. They couldn't in the same way that ants can't or rabbits can't because
Because they were
they're
just
a
constantly
prey
being
species.
consumed. Yeah.
Mhm.
They were mid-tier in their pecking order at best.
The megafauna is still a factor.
No,
Yeah.
thanks to the as it's remembered, the heroic actions of Pyrion.
Right.
He led a march through the lands, wiping out most of the megafauna.
So without the megafauna, would that not allow the goblins to use that survival instinct for other means?
Yes, except then they were faced with the immediate encroachment of humanity as humanity expanded a large scope empire across this continent. So they were never actually given room to become what they would have become.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah.
Well, hello,
You're assholes.
beautiful.
Thank you for that follow, Fantastic Waves. I appreciate you.
You don't get to evolve because we're here now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They kind of lost any niche that they would have had to be able to expand would have been because it was easy and fertile and safe.
Right.
And that's prime for where the much stronger and more cunning human species
So now they're
can
just
immediately exploit.
like a pest.
Depending
Okay.
on your point of view, yes.
Yes, they are pests.
What do you mean,
But,
depending on your point of view? From what I'm garnering here.
They are objectively invasive little pests, but there are places that utilize their nature
Get me
Or-
fired up. Get me fired up.
for their
Let me
for
at
their
him,
own
coach.
purposes.
Let me at him.
like in Artifices,
I'm gonna get that
they
big ass
introduce him, huh?
eyeball. I'm gonna get that big ass eyeball.
In Artifices, they treat them more as peers because they recognize that their group intelligence is still valuable as a form of intelligence.
Gotcha.
And their utility justifies the fact that they are otherwise creatures. Things without utility aren't as useful. We wouldn't have horses and cows as readily as we do if they didn't have their immediate utility. But because goblins are super useful and have their own level of intelligence that you can perceive like you can with a dolphin or an octopus, like you interact with things regularly, you start to see the latent charisma that you can only get from interacting with it
Now, are
over a
they
large
used
period
as
of time.
slave labor?
By Arcanus, yeah.
Yes. In Arcanist, specifically because they see them as objectively as pests, they are lobotomized to no longer be able to speak to each other in order to be able to control their behavior, and are used as expendable labor.
That's fucked up.
It is. It is. They're a free people in Artifice, who enjoy to work in the Tinker workshops and are given free reign on their own projects because a lot of weird innovation has come out of things like that.
Chaz?
When given a series of repetitious work, they tend to think themselves into more efficient ways or avenues to arrive at the same form at the end point. So they are used as optimization paths.
Okay.
For the development of industry.
Like the Bill Gates way of hiring lazy people to do a job.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when it comes between Arcanus and what was the other one?
So there's Arx Arcanus, there's Arx Angelus, Arx Artificis is the place where goblins are free.
Yeah.
Arx.
I played your Minecraft, yes.
Great. Arx Arboris is a place where a lot of the native species of Atrum are given reign to try to flourish and grow into their own.
So it's a hippies.
But in a guided way.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like hippies meets eugenics. It's not great. It's kind of it's kind of a natural hellscape over there. It's like if the Feywild from like D&D were like real. So like everything's trying to eat everything over there.
Okay.
That's
Arborist.
That's Arx Arboris, yeah.
And
Z, do you have the map you can pull up real quick?
Yeah. Give me a
I fucking love that animation, by the way, bro.
Oh,
That's coming out real solid.
I'm loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Ba-da-ba-ba. God damn it! I could have done it louder than you.
Yeah, you don't have a 5-second delay now. You have to fight fair.
Fuck you. I've heard that before.
New image.
But those four like city states are the pillars of the Arx Imperium, and the Empire in ages that come afterwards. Other places try to get set up, but crazy random happenstances occur. A series of unfortunate events.
You're very unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm assuming human interference.
No. Goblin named Yarok nukes a place.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that happens. That's canon. That is
actual canon.
Shut the fuck up. No, I'm against this. For obvious reasons.
Yeah, you would be.
That's a nice map. I noticed there's no roads going into Arx Arboris.
No, actually, there's a spine of the world right there that separates
yes.
Arboris and the rest of the continent proper. There is a small city-state thing. It's called the Friary that exists in the one pass between the Arcanian and Angelian lands and Arboris. Goblinheimer. So in actuality, hold up. I gotta do my boy Yarok right, because he doesn't. He does. No, I'm doing it. He's not the one who nukes this place. All right.
Lady Charm, thank you so much for the follow.
Amazing. He's not the one who nukes this place.
You don't have to answer that right away, though.
Okay.
I won't let you. I will allow you to stand in defense of Yerok, but I don't think we need to pull the trigger on that story thread.
Okay. Fair. Lots of intrigue. Yerok did nothing wrong. And he was taken out for it.
No, I stand on that.
Right.
I agree. Yerok did nothing wrong.
Yeah. No. And was actually a figure to be idolized, but painted poorly by history. That's what I'll leave it. I'll leave it there.
Good bullshit.
It is. I'm on your side, even though I did have a huge hand in writing this bullshit. And I meant
That's true.
Let me ask, where's the fucking name come from?
I did fuck him over. Oh yeah, and I insisted on the name to a point that I boldface fought Zeno on it. It came to blows.
He blew me.
Exactly.
Those that don't know in the chat, Yerok backwards is Corey, and that's me.
Ain't no way. Say it ain't so.
Weird. Crazy how nature be like that.
Like you guys get these characters of like these crazy beings and shit, and y'all write me in there as a goddamn as Goblinheimer.
I don't know what you're talking about. Goblinheimer.
Actually, the nickname for a very long time
No, that's okay.
was different.
Oh god.
So the nickname for a long time was different because the role that this character plays in the story, in the eyes of a lot of people, is as a revolutionary.
Okay.
And when we had originally devised a meaningful story for that character, it was the way that we distilled his character for easy use. So it wasn't Goblinheimer, it was Goblin Hitler. And the reason for that was because his role was as a revolutionary to try to bring the main distinction here is people see him as as like a Hitler type person, where he's bringing some crazy new fucking ideology, some crazy ideology,
amazing
to an otherwise peaceful world. But in actuality, he's a more revolutionary figure, where he represents the accepting of the local fauna in their own respects, is in being able to recognize not just the utility of things that aren't human, but respecting their individuality and their intelligence.
Also, that nickname, that moniker, was a joke penned from the point of view of the church that hella vilifies him.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was meant to be like a caricature. Not as literal.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this whole world, like they came from the cradle, like the humans did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would that cradle, like, I'm assuming, is Earth?
No.
It doesn't need to be.
So
it's just the origin of humanity that we have it for in this universe.
Gotcha, and it's very.
But allows us to have inserts of Earth-like things, like Earth-like animals, such as horses and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it acts more as a narrative device, and that's also the reason that it is just the cradle. It is never named.
Right. A lot of how it functioned as a utopia and what that means to the people, or how it functioned as a utopia, and what was carried over, is a lot more of a narrative device than it is um, a series of actual hard and fast rules or things. Because what we wanted from them is to have this deep sense of cultural despair and loss, and the details of how it functioned become more and more meaningless as time goes on, because what's important about the cradle is what it means to the people now,
Right.
and what it represented to the people who were trying to make their way in this world, not the nitty-gritty details of what made it tick.
Goblin Hitler. Thank you, Zeno, for going to bat for going against that name.
What?
Going against.
Yeah.
Arx. I appreciate you.
I got you.
That was when we began to pull away from all the self inserts for the lore, as we were actually canonizing things.
Yeah, because
Okay.
like the whole thing is inspired by stuff that has been done in the past, but we wanted to make it something that would stand on its own. So all of the characters and events became much more divorced as we started to refine it, because we wanted it to be more realistic. We wanted the characters to be something that could have their own stories. What's up, Chaos? Hold up, what?
Hold up.
So, yeah, the only thing that survived was the name Yera. He started to pull away from after Goblin Hitler.
No. The argument of the name happened when we started to pull away from self-inserts. So the reason that he was arguing against the name was not because he didn't like the name, but more along the lines of didn't like it as as an insert thing, because it was definitely a reference to Corey.
He laughs so he doesn't put his gun in his back.
Don't go to school.
Fucking funny, guys. Great jokes. Keep fucking laughing.
Just clarify. No, so and that's those characters. Even though I fought for that name, that's because I do like the name, and the meme of it. I'm not gonna lie.
It is a good goblin name.
But those characters, like they've even their personalities have been very divorced from the self inserts that they started as. Like with Rockwus is nothing like me. There are cartoonishly caricaturized versions of things that I've used just because it's one of those write what you know deals.
Right.
But he's not me. Just as Pyrion is not Zeno. And Yerok is nothing like Corey.
Yeah, I'm not fucking Goblin Hitler.
It's just where those things were birthed.
All right, so this map.
Yep.
Where did it stem from? Like, did you guys like craft the story around the map, or vice versa?
We had a general idea of where things were relative to each other. For example, this is the map that Rec bullied me into using. This is the one that I had originally created, based off of my understanding of how things existed relative to each other.
I'm still looking at the same thing. Hold up. I'm waiting for our stream to catch up. How am I so far behind? There we go. It's behind the floating eyeball, but I got you. All right, there we go. You moved it. I'm talking to you in the past, but good job.
All right,
How about now? Can you see it now?
Love the universe.
Can you see it now?
I see an Umbrella Academy symbol over there.
I appreciate you. Yeah, that would be where Arcanist was.
Okay.
No.
No?
No.
What the fuck you
He's
mean
talking
no?
about. He's talking about arborist. It's a tiny tree, but it looks like an umbrella.
Oh.
Unless
Oh.
I have no
I-
idea what.
I thought he was
right. The
talking
one
about...
over to the east.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Never
arborist.
mind. Yeah, that. Yeah, and so there were some things that. Damn, I mean, we came up with those two maps independently of each other, but with the same understanding of where things were in relation to each other, that they ended up coming out pretty similarly. But I did definitely bully him into using the one that I had.
For what reason?
He made it.
I made it, and I'm a bully. A lot of our canon is a collaborative argument.
I mean, it looks like things are like mostly in the same areas that they would have been.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just
Which is why I didn't.
the shape of the land itself is different.
It was more important to him than it was to me what the shape was.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we had both
this one
arrived
feels
at
like more
roughly the same.
organic.
So that
Yeah.
ultimately ended up being a lot of my arguments for things, was that I tried to take biome, environment, and weather into account for in the structure of the land around things, and I put a lot of thought into I went way deep in the sauce that will never matter. It will never matter how deep into that sauce I went, but it mattered to me a lot at the time because I was hyper focusing on it. So I had put a lot of effort into
Is
the
this like
ecosystems.
a world,
and
a
weather patterns and
planet,
shit.
or is it like a plane?
A world, a planet? There are other continents actually, and other stories happening over there.
I was gonna ask about other continents because you were talking about biomes and stuff. I was like, is there like a northern continent?
There are other
there's one
continents that
other
exist,
one
but
other
we haven't fleshed them
supercontinent.
out.
There's,
Gotcha.
Yeah, there may be
All
other
right.
smaller continents, but there's
So-
one other supercontinent.
Touching back on the old Minecraft server you guys used to have
Oh
that
my God,
shared a lot of these names.
The secret origin, the deep
Is
lore.
the geography
No,
to this at all?
No.
Like,
no,
okay.
Not even a little.
nope.
So like it's not in the same general directions or
No,
Nope.
not even
Okay.
informed by the biomes that were present in that game.
Gotcha.
Ain't that the fucking truth?
Yeah, that was old Minecraft.
Yeah, no, we like with the characters, only drew general inspiration from. So, Arcanus ended up down where it is there because I had always wanted to be in plains, so as to best show off the city itself against the horizon, because a lot of its appearance is this. This
Right.
is what Arcanus looks like in present day, or at the time of the Voidfall.
Oh, I'm waiting for that.
So that and so we ended up moving it down in that southern area, specifically
So
because
it had room to breathe.
Yeah, so it would have room to breathe, and so that it could be a sort of contrast to what Angelus is like. I have a mock-up of what Angelus looks like,
Okay.
and it exists in the mountains as this colossal structure that kind of demonstrates humanity's desire to wall up and try to be safe.
So, in this universe, the humans like went off and like colonized other worlds.
Just the one, actually,
Just
Okay.
Atrum here.
and just that one continent on Atrum.
And you said that there's thousands of years,
Yeah.
Yes.
and that's as much as they got.
That is a big motherfucking continent. That is all of Asia, Europe, fucking Africa. That's the shebang. That is a supercontinent. Those are not small distances. And in fact, the only way that they can bridge those distances is because they have a method of instantaneous translocation via the Arx gate system, which are derivations of the same technology that they used to slip from the cradle to Atrum initially, but it's connected gates from one kingdom or principality to another for instantaneous travel, so you can just like teleport from one to another. And that technology is based off of it's like Mana Punk-esque, but it's...
This is the mock-up of Arx Angeles?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh shit, you also have the mock-up for Artifice.
Yeah.
The definitely generative mock-up of it.
So it's in the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Angela says, yeah.
Zeno, is this character of yours the eye? Is this at all a character?
Oh, yeah. That is
The design is drawn specifically from it.
Okay.
Here, let me get you the real mock-up of Artifice, because I pulled up the haha placeholder one.
Dick.
The original one that I had cooked up for you.
Which was a cool
Artifice.
direction. Waiting to see it. Yeah, there she is.
So what is Artifice like? What's their shtick?
Artifice and machine.
Machine.
Gotcha. Robots. They'd be robots.
All again Mana Punk, built off of Arx Tech, which ironically is still the name of that. So that's kind of a self-insert because it's the name of our company.
Well, to be fair, it's
one beget the other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We named the company
after Arx Tech.
I was using all the
Yeah. So, but that's what the technology of this Imperium is called, because it's the tech for the Arx Imperium.
Right.
But it uses arcane energy or the ambient breath to essentially work spells or do shit like that. Like there's a lot of hand waving on what's mechanical and what's magical, because they go hand in hand on that.
Like Asgard and Marvel.
No. A lot. Well, no, because there's same basic principle, but they do a lot of shooting magical beams, and we do more moving parts and intentional mechanisms.
So this image that I'm uploading here is not ours. I believe it's a magic gather. but
it
helps
represents
represent one aspect of what Arx Tech looks like. And I'm updating it again. So I know you guys are in the past.
Yeah.
That's one aspect of it. That's very early age trying to get shit working. And then this other image is a much more refined aspect of how it looks once it's gotten its shit together technologically.
Yeah. Perfect. Not the exact same style, but in the right direction, right form.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if I can tie it to another IP, sort of like the Draenei. Like with their sentinels and shit.
kind of. So like only in the direction of automatons. Because that is roughly how golems go. That is their progression. And they stop in that direction. But other things, it's God, what's another thing? Nothing outside of Magic really does that type of style. That sleek silvered machining.
Nothing outside of what?
Magic, MTG.
Oh, no. That in fact that's very specific to Kaladesh, one of their planes.
Dune in its golden age of technology does shit like that, so it gets similar stylistically. And ironically
like the
enough,
movie Alita Battle Angel. Good movie, by the way.
Not seen it. I don't
It
watch
is a
many
good movie.
movies. It's a problem. It's a problem. I don't have enough dedicated time for a movie like that, because movies can't really be second screen content, and I'm always fucking working on something. Whoops, killed that guy.
Well, what are you making here, Zeno?
It's my raid alert.
Oh,
So whenever
For
I get a
stream.
raid alert, you go, "Wing," and then show the info down.
What was the last
well,
question? Did we answer everything?
I think that's all I got. I gotta be getting to bed. I got work in the morning.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right, guys. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks for hanging out.
No, dude.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you.
Pretty fucking cool.
Fuck yeah.
Hope to
Z,
hear more about it.
hell yeah. If we continue, it'll be up on YouTube, and you can brush up on any parts that you may have missed.
Sounds
If
good.
you're interested. Thank you again so much, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.
Z,
Later, guys.
No, dude.
are there any loops for us to close? Anything for us to continue going on our own?
He did bring up the design of the fucking around with OBS here. He did bring up the design for the soprano that I'm using
Yeah.
as my avatar.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is as I continue to flesh out my presence here on Twitch, the artistic direction that I'm taking inspiration from is the entity, the extra dimensional celestial tools that were devised by Pyrion to help protect humanity, which share a lot of the same visual language, and I'm using that as an excuse to be able to create more art for them. So, for example, the one that I have right now is the soprano, which is a huge goddamn image. Holy crap. And the soprano, so there's the choir, which is a sort of cast of artificial angels created to protect humanity. And what they mean in Arx Legacy is this soprano is the smallest form of that. They're the lowest rung. They're the worker bees that do a lot of the manual labor, as it were, when it comes to protecting people. And in this hierarchy, they become larger and more complex, the more important they are, and the higher their duties become. So eventually, you start seeing much weirder and more cosmic shapes in their design language. And so as I design my avatar here for Twitch, it'll give me an excuse to be able to play around in this design space some more. Where right now, these just exist as a series of reference images that don't really have a place to exist anywhere else.
This is the anthem, the final call. Grade out creators, break down the wall. We're the highest power, world in our hands. Grade out together, we make our stand. We rise together, we rise together. Always another creator, another view. Grade out, keep strong, we're pushing.